podcast dedicated to celebrating women who have made or are making an impact on our society. With me today, I have my favorite rock collector, Rupert Granite.
That is my first and last name. Thank you very much.
To kick off our next mini-series, and I am giving you a heads up on this one, we are going to be discussing the incredible life of the Chinese pirate queen herself, Ching Shih. I again apologize for my pronunciations. I've looked them up, I've written them out, and I can guarantee I will mispronounce them. Not intentionally. I'm doing my best.
You're going to work through it. It's fine.
We're
going to get through the episode. It'll be good.
Buckle in, everybody. Let's get right to it. Ching Shih was born in Guangzhou, Guangdong, also known as the Canton Province in China, in 1775. Guangzhou is currently the capital of the province. Now, not much is known about her early life, except for the fact that she was very poor. As a young woman, she made her living working on a floating brothel in Canton.
Okay. And a floating brothel is, I guess, just a brothel that relocates or moves.
Yeah, so it's basically a boat that has been turned into a brothel. And it sometimes will relocate at different ports, but for the most part, they generally stay on the same port. It's obviously a rough life to live because not a lot is known about her time there. She didn't like to discuss it. I believe that the experiences she had in the brothel are the reason she ran her fleet the way she did later in life. She used her time there to learn secrets about the wealthy and the powerful.
I mean, yeah, if she was in her position, I'm sure she had probably caught wind of some information that was not readily accessible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in case she wanted to, blackmail for any reason. Ching Shih was known to be a very beautiful and powerful woman, even while working at the brothel, and she caught the eye of a pirate by the name of Zheng Yi. He was the commander of the Red Flag Fleet at the time. Now, there is some speculation on how the proposal actually went down. Some say he conducted a raid on the brothel and had her taken. Others say she was just simply proposed to. My money's on the second, though, because she accepted the proposal in 1801 at the age of 26 under two conditions.
What were those conditions?
Those conditions were she was to have power in the Red Flag Fleet, and Zheng Yi was to split his plunder with her.
50-50?
Essentially, yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, so she wanted, a prenup. She basically asked for,
exactly.
a prenuptial. Oh, man.
Man, which is pretty crazy to think that he absolutely agreed to it.
Oh, he did?
He did. He agreed to it. And which is kind of crazy.
She must have been worth it though. He must have known I have to lock her down.
Oh yeah.
I will do whatever.
Yeah. He must have seen how powerful and resilient she was even in that brothel context.
Yeah. Real ride or die.
The two were able to grow the fleet exponentially from just 200 ships to 1,800 ships very, very quickly. This was largely due to a coalition with the Cantonese pirate forces. So by 1804, the Red Flag Fleet was the largest pirate fleet China had ever seen.
I like the idea of a pirate force, a pirate fleet. That's really
That's a lot of ships in 3 years.
Yeah, that's a lot of expansion.
Yeah. Real quick.
Their influence grew exponentially in a matter of 3 years. Okay.
So the fleet was color-coded, obviously,
That's
the
awesome.
Red Flag Fleet. So it was led by the Red Flag, followed by convoys labeled black, white, blue, yellow, and green.
Oh, I would have loved if it was different shades of red.
That would have been cool.
Like scarlet. This is the Scarlet Group, and then that's
this is maroon.
This is maroon. Yeah, and then other colors of red that I'm completely forgetting. All of them. All of the colors.
All the shades of red.
Yeah, 50 shades of red for that fleet. That's what we'll call it.
One of the fleet's largest successes came in 1804 when they blockaded a Portuguese trading post in Macau. The Red Flag Fleet overpowered all who tried to get involved. Where was the British Royal Navy, you ask?
I was thinking that. I just didn't want to spoil it.
They declined to get involved.
Oh, they declined?
Yeah.
Oh.
Instead of providing naval escorts to everyone or just trying to break up whatever was going down in that port, They just provided escorts for their allies and their own ships.
Okay, well, I mean, damn. But I'm pretty sure at the time, the Spanish Armada was the biggest and strongest fleet, so I don't know. I mean, it probably would have helped in terms of distribution and trading, but, I'm sure it wasn't that big of a loss, right? Possibly. And not having the English help them.
Well,
Yeah,
it,
maybe.
it did make a big difference. So sadly, 6 years into their marriage, Yi died in Vietnam. There's speculation around his death, with some saying he was murdered in Vietnam and others saying he died in a tsunami off the coast. So those records are not to be found. Either way, Ching Shih took his death in stride and consolidated power to assume control of the Red Flag Fleet. She summoned all of the fleet captains, some of whom tried to flee. She told them, you can try to escape and most likely die, or you can suck it up and serve under a woman. She was like no other leader that the fleet had ever seen before. She was a she, number one, so that one's like pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But she was also cunning, calculating, and smarter than all of the other leaders before her, including her husband.
Well, she was a businesswoman with the floating, brothel.
She knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
Things are about to get a little weird, though.
Oh.
Xing married her husband's lover and her adopted son, Chang Po Sai.
Super casual.
So,
okay.
Chang Po had been the right-hand man of Yi before he passed. Right-hand man. How many Hamilton references can I smash into all of these episodes?
Oh, I think we're about to find out.
He was already trusted and respected amongst the crew. On occasion, she would give orders to him to pass on to the others, the more difficult ones that were somewhat stubborn. They had 2 children together, but unfortunately not much is known about the 2. One can assume they went into the family business, though. The 2 were able to grow the Red Flag Fleet until it had reached tens of thousands of pirates.
Wow.
They wreaked havoc up and down the coast of China. Any resistance was almost immediately put down. They held people for ransom, they demanded tributes, and any force sent by the Chinese government was defeated in battle. Ching Shih held her crew to a very strict code of ethics that were unheard of at the time. Are you ready?
I'm even before you get into it, I'm just glad that she held. You're about to tell us that she had a set of standards that she wanted to maintain. That's good. I feel like I'm not too familiar with many pirates trying to maintain order in the sort of fashion, but please.
Well, her rules were different than anyone else's. The first is a pretty standard. Ching Shih is the boss. Disobey orders, you lose your head. Anything collected in an attack belongs to the fleet. The booty must be turned over. The first time you are caught with something that should have been turned over, you receive a whipping. Second time, you're dead.
Oh.
You must stay on your ship unless otherwise instructed. Leave without permission. First offense, you lose your ears because you weren't listening. Yeah. What do you need ears for if you're not going to listen anyway, right? Second offense, you're dead. Now, this is where things take a shift from other normal pirate code. Do not rape women. You're not allowed to rape a female captive. If you do, you die. There's no sex outside of marriage. You must be married to whomever you're wanting to sleep with. You cheat on her, you die. Want to sleep with someone who isn't your wife? No dice. You do? You die. And I think that must come back to her experience on the brothel.
Yeah.
It was obviously strict, but definitely effective. Ching Shih and her Red Flag Fleet went largely unnoticed until the Battle of Tiger's Mouth in 1809. By this time, the Chinese, Portuguese, and the British had run-ins with Shih and the fleet. All of these countries had individually tried to take Shih on and failed drastically. In early 1809, Shih successfully captured 7 British soldiers, 1 official from the East India Trading Company.
I was going to inquire about that eventually. I was wondering if the Dutch East India Trading Company would come into play or if that was just a storyline from the third Pirates movie.
Nope.
I was hoping we would get into that.
You know what? Speaking of the Pirates movie, though, there is a little bit of a nod to her in I believe it's Dead Man's Chest. There's a Chinese woman pirate at the pirate council, and it's obviously it's the third one.
Third one. Yeah, that's why I mentioned
it's
it.
a nod to her.
When they mention it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's supposed to be like.
That's supposed to be her.
That's so great.
I mean, they didn't. I mean, she could have. They could have really done a really cool spin-off on her. But...
Actually, they were supposed to add more because Chow Yun-fat played a naval officer, but I think they got rid of some of the scenes in the theatrical adaptation. But all the same, I'm really glad that she withstood those three forces and held her own.
Now, all three decided to band together to finally do something about the Pirate Queen. The Portuguese loaded up their ships with as much artillery as they could, and they set off. Once again, sources vary on the details of the encounter itself, but nonetheless, the Red Flag Fleet was no match for the heavily armed Portuguese ships. In 1810, and instead of going quietly, Ching Shih spent months negotiating with the Chinese government. China was under the rule of the Qing dynasty at the time, and they brokered a deal with Xi. Give up the weapons, and amnesty will be granted to the thousands of pirates under her command. So Ching Shih, along with most of her men, were given amnesty. Of the thousands, I believe only like 250 to 300 were actually faced consequences. And I believe those were for like very high crimes.
Sure.
Cheng Po, her adopted son husband, became an officer in the Chinese Navy. This type of deal was absolutely unheard of in general. Consider that she spent years stealing from 3 of the largest naval powers and stole from villages up and down China's coast. She was able to retire with no prison time, all of the booty she had accumulated over the years, and no lasting consequences.
That's badass.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Not one to sit around, she took her money and opened a gambling house.
Hey.
You know?
She's a business person.
She is absolutely a business person.
Yeah. I'm glad that she went back even after her main career as a pirate to create just another form of business and income.
She also got involved in Macau's salt trade, so that's one legal business, I guess.
Man, she stayed busy.
She did. In 1830, China was exhausted and furious with the rampant use of opium, and they tried to have the drug banned. The British were making obscene amounts of money getting China hooked on the drug. They started a war to, quote-unquote, improve diplomatic relations with China.
I don't think that went well, though.
Nope. Ching Shih entered the conflict as a military advisor to a military leader named Lin. Sadly, the British ultimately won that war.
Man.
Yeah, that's no good.
I like that she went back.
She's
as a military advisor. Her nation, her country.
Considering her turbulent and action-packed life, she lived a long one, passing away at the age of 69 in 1844. Wow. Pirate Queen Ching Shih is widely accepted as the most successful pirate in human history.
Yeah, I don't know of many other pirates, pirate stories, male or female, where
they lived and got to keep all their bounty.
Yeah, and brokered a deal of amnesty, and then, when wartime broke out for their country, and, served as a military advisor. Yeah, isn't
that such a weird, that's like a come from the bottom, to the top story from literally
floating brothels to becoming a military advisor for the country.
Yeah, and just being the most successful pirate of all time, because all these other ones were caught or killed at sea or caught and killed in jail.
Not to mention that she maintained that kind of order where, there was a level of respect probably seen on these pirate ships that had never been put in place.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting that she
was able to
keep that order.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to, I mean, I guess maybe her brutality, but I think it was more of a psychological rule that she had. She was a fighter, of course, and did bad things, but she also led thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of men in this with the help of her partners, but she was absolute boss always, all the time.
Yeah, boss woman in charge, making sure that people just treated each other normally, on her boat, as opposed to violating each other and their partners. That seems like an awful thing that they were probably doing. If someone has to come in and change those sort of rules and restrictions, then things are
no
probably in a bad
allowed.
place to start. Like, she just, she turned that ship right around.
Yeah.
Oh man,
she really did, and it's something that I also thought was interesting. I didn't fully know how to work it into the initial script. Was so they would take women captive. So in the East, there wasn't the same stigma of having women on board a ship at sea as there is in the West, or was in the West. Because speaking, Pirates of the Caribbean, they touch on that a little bit, how they say it's bad luck to have a woman on board. That stigma wasn't assigned to pirate ships or any sort of seafaring group in the East. They didn't hold the same stigmas. So when they would take female captives, it wasn't considered bad luck. It wasn't going to be bad luck to have a woman on ship. Now, what she would do with the more beautiful captives was to keep them captive and then marry them off to her crew members. But the less fortunate looking women, she just kind of released.
Oh.
Yeah, no harm. She never allowed anyone to beat them. It's a very interesting power dynamic.
That she kept these female captives safe throughout it all. I mean,
as safe as they could be.
As safe, I guess as
considered.
they could be, because they were still held captive, and that sucks regardless of, gender. Being held captive isn't something that anyone volunteers for.
No, not a good time. Absolutely not a good time.
Then it's something else. But
yeah. It's I still just keep coming back to her ability, literally as a businesswoman, to broker that sort of deal of no jail time, and I get to keep all my money, and I get to also live completely freely with no consequence, and also all my men. And they were like,
deal.
Sure, we don't want to do. That's how much trouble she was causing. She could have done some real damage.
She brokered the deal. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
She's a strong woman. She was a strong person. That's how she got off and did what she did.
Any more to add?
No. She. This was a really cool story. I liked the female pirate story.
She's so cool.
It also makes me want to watch Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, I think we
At
might
World's
do that.
End.
Yeah,
is the third one. Dead Man's Chest was 2.
I think we should.
Do you
watch
have
that.
anything you'd like to add?
I do not.
Or do you have anything you'd like to promote for next week, perhaps?
I do actually on that.
How do I know? That's weird. It's
well, first, I would like to thank you all so much for listening to another episode of Women of Her Story. Tune back in this Friday for an interview with Julia Cavagna. She's a performing artist with the Metropolitan Opera in New York City. Now, don't forget to to subscribe, to tell your friends. You can follow us on social media on Instagram at Women of Her Story Podcast. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Until Friday, be safe, stay healthy, and show the world what you're made of.